Hello, I'm OG, and welcome to Speaking of Everything. Well, for the first time in 2026, it's back, and always here, always a pleasure. And all of you, regular viewers to this program on YouTube, Facebook, and all who listen to us on Hot 99.9 FM radio, ask me when he's coming back. Well, he's back. Man himself, Mr. Emilio Kalmera. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Earl. How are you doing? Good
all
to be
right.
back.
How are things going?
Yeah, very busy, man. Especially I'm on board of the pension fund. So
Yeah.
very, very busy there. 2025 was a great year for the fund.
That's nice.
And for the last 2 years, we was able to index because we did well. And this year, for 2025, we'll be able to do that as well. But the numbers, exact numbers will be coming out just now. I'm very proud of the team and everything.
Yeah.
And it's really good to see how far we came, you know, and a lot of people had doubts with the direction it was planned to go. But it shows that when you know your business and you plan a direction or whatever, you know, and just work it out, even though they have the naysayers or whatever. But sometimes they don't see what you see.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And you just have to work out a plan, and then today we've seen the benefits of that.
That's important because the pension fund is important for civil servants and their retirement and everything, right?
Correct. And a lot of persons have been complaining about the Mary Fancy, for example.
Yeah.
And that was something we inherited when we first came in there, me and Natalie tackling at the time.
Yeah.
And now we got certain things out of the way, and now we're going to start focusing on Mary Fancy as well. So, you know, there's steps.
Right.
You know, you have to then plan accordingly and then avoid all the noise.
I think what happened, a lot of people felt that it was a bad investment. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it will turn out to be a good investment.
But we have to make it so because we inherited.
Yeah,
so we have to do something about it, you know, and we looked at different options at the time. By the time we couldn't focus on that, we were focusing on governance because we have a daughter company that's going to be doing investments. The idea was very good, but it didn't make it structurally sound. So we was focused more on the governance structure or whatever. People don't realize you need to have a very good functioning governance structure.
Exactly.
You know, for example, by GB, that's a breakdown. If you don't have a good governance structure, all else is futile, and we was mainly focusing on that, and then also on the investment, trying to get our local investments going because 60% have to remain on the island, and remember the island, everyone's competing. Exactly. All the banks are competing, so it's a small pool of investment everyone is competing for. So we need to get that on the going first, and then we now can start focusing on the stuff that's on the books that was a problem, you know?
Well, it's good to hear you all are doing well because many pension funds in the region are not doing that well at all.
Yeah, well, I think the ones within our fair is doing okay.
Yeah.
Like we have PCN just invested in revamping a hotel in Sabre. We was invited to that.
Yeah.
Pretty good job they did over there. And then you have pension funds from Curacao or whatever, and they're doing pretty good. Like the one that bought over the bank, we call it the Postbad Bank. So they own that as well. The pension fund owned that. You know, so but outside of the kingdom, I'm not too sure how they are doing. But internally, we're doing okay.
Yeah, I was when they were talking about some of the other islands outside the kingdom, how they're struggling with investment and losses that they've incurred over the years. Yeah. So I'm happy to hear that. There was a year when you all lost money. You wasn't there at the time.
No, it wasn't. Right. I wasn't there. But remember, the market is very volatile. The beauty is we switched from active investment to passive, because what happened is we realized the person the company that was doing it for us before, they're making money doing active, but it wasn't beneficial to the pension fund.
Exactly.
So also we did a RFP, allow them to also be part of it. And they had the advantage because they was there years. They started out with us, and they did a very poor job in the whole interview process and whatever. So we end up choosing another active manager to invest the funds internationally, and then we have our daughter company SMIC that is doing local and also within Curacao as well, investments as well.
You know, it's amazing when you look at the markets throughout the world. What's happening today? You know, investments are very important. Especially for pension funds and so forth.
Yeah, correct. And look, Norway. Norway is, if you go to do your research now with Norway Sovereign Wealth Fund,
they're one of the biggest, huh?
It's crazy. The last time when I first researched them, they could have gave each citizen about, let me say, 70,000 of their money. Now it's excess of over 100-something thousand per citizen. Huh? So they're doing tremendously well.
That'd be beautiful if we can get there.
But you see, you have to be smart, right? Norway realized, look, oil is going to one day be, we can't focus on only oil.
Right.
Let's take the money from oil and then put it in a fund and then divest, diversification. It gives us options. You know, that's why the term optionality. You understand? So we could have done the same thing with tourism. You know, that tourism dollar, right? Eventually, you take it now and then start becoming self-sustainable. Warren Buffett did it. Warren Buffett bought a textile company, not because he wanted to buy a textile company. He needed a revenue generator. So you revamp it, turn it into a revenue generator, and then use the funds from that to buy a bunch of different investment, and then what you have today.
Could you imagine a man in dividends from Coca-Cola alone is $500 million? $500 million?
Yeah, you have McDonald's, you have a bunch of shares.
And when you add them all up, it's over $1 billion in dividends he makes annually.
Correct.
Wow.
Smart.
Amazing.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just look at those little little pickets, and then you just do the same thing.
But how you feel about the way things are going in the world today? Because when you look at, for example, the stock market, there's just a few large companies really remaining that really making things happen.
Correct. So you can see the world is consolidating. So the rich are consolidating. And what's compounding that as well now is the AI, right? So you've seen a lot of these big Googles or whatever. At some point, if governments don't do anything, they're going to usurp everything. And that's just the reality of the matter. The thing is, I know I can't beat them. So what I do, I make sure to invest in that area as well so that I can be part of the growth. Because at the end of the day, what you're going to do, the governments are not doing anything to prevent that. And you as a citizen, far less could do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's very tricky.
It's amazing. I was reading somewhere where Google and Facebook and so forth, from their revenues, only like 1% goes to payroll. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So now capital is becoming the mecca, not labor.
Yeah.
Right? And the problem is most governments in the world, if you look at their revenues, it comes from labor, right? Payroll tax, whatever the case is. So now as AI and AI agents and so forth start taking over more and more labor, the question is, how do governments make revenue if they don't change the model to a capital model? But how are they going to do that when their friends are also part of the whole small elite? You see, that's the challenge.
But they're claiming that the U.S. government created that problem in 2008 when they gave free money to the banks and all those big companies, and it created a whole different situation.
Correct. You create an imbalance.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I tell people capitalism is no longer capitalism, right? Because capitalism worked differently than how it is now. Now it changed to capitalism to creditism. Because now money creation now is what's driving the whole economic aspect and speculation. But the problem with money creation, who gets it first? This hedge funds, the billionaire companies and so forth, they get the money first.
Right.
And then as they create more money, so to speak, more credit, asset values goes up, right? And then the whiplash effect is inflation for the person who don't have assets. So persons who work in just a job, they basically can get wiped out. And the AI can finish the job.
Well, I want to stay optimistic, when it comes to AI, because a lot of people said the same thing about the digital technology that's we experiencing now before AI.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen, so maybe it won't happen.
The difference now is cognitive, right? A lot of jobs, when we move from mechanization took over a lot of labor-type jobs, right? Like hand, whatever. So, and it shifted some jobs to services and so forth like that. Now you have a technology that also can do cognitive, right? We never had that before, right? So even the work that I do, right? When I start to use AI, sometimes I sit back in my chair and say, oh my God, this is going to be a problem. And Elon Musk said it, right? Elon Musk said it, but Elon Musk said, look, at the end of the day, I'm going to warn you, but I can't stop either, because if I do stop, the competitor going to just, overrun me. So, but he warns the government, you guys have to do something. But at the end of the day, I can't stop.
So then with AI, we all become equal?
That's the thing. It depends who using it.
Yeah,
who using it and so forth. But at the end of the day, right, if I have 1,000 persons in let's say I have a huge organization, and I have 1,000 people working in there, right? But with AI, let's say I only need 200 people.
Right.
What happens to the 800? And if each industry have the same aspect, at some point we cannot replace others. All those people who fire, we're replacing them. Where they going?
And I agree with you, because I remember when we started off here, and sometimes we used to have a cameraman and a tool,
Correct.
a switcher.
Correct. I remember that.
So
Madam Estate. I remember that. Yeah.
Now it's just myself.
Just yourself, exactly.
So
You switched. Remember, it was me, one other guy,
Right.
and yourself.
Imagine what will happen 10 years from now.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So
It's scary.
yeah,
It's scary.
But then again, if you look back to COVID-19, right? You remember COVID-19, the global economy was in shambles away. Then America discovered that the reliance on China was dangerous. So they started making changes, which Trump is doing now.
Yeah.
But what do you think about us in St. Maarten? Because, during COVID, the government gave free money to business and all kinds of people and so forth. And they didn't have to pay it back, I think.
That's the difference between what happened in the States and even in Canada. Like I have a good friend of mine. She received money because she was temporarily laid off.
Where?
In Canada.
Okay.
The problem was she told me she had to pay it back, right? She had to pay it back, and also she get a tax assessment. So they handle it totally different than us. Totally different.
Yeah. And I think that for me, I never agree with that. And I thought it was one of the biggest mistakes we made because in the long run, we're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I think what surprised me...
But we're paying for it already, though.
Exactly.
It's debt on the books, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
And you know it better than me that, the former Nelson Tillies had a debt of just over 5 billion guilders. St. Maarten today have a crazy debt.
We book 1 billion so in debt right now. Yeah.
In a short period of time.
Yeah.
It took Nelson Tillies 50 years to get there.
Yeah.
We're doing it in just a little over a decade.
Correct. But our debt will continue to skyrocket because as long as you have the tax system that we do have, right, there's only a small portion of people paying. Because remember, two big revenue generators for government is wage tax and turnover tax. Right? And the problem with wage tax doesn't necessarily grow with economic growth because of the 60% are earning minimum wage or less, right? So 2,500 or less. So even if you have economic growth, that pocket is so big that you won't see any more wage tax coming through into the government coffers.
But in the early stages, back, say, in the late 60s to the early 80s, it was the bulk of the government income, wage tax.
Correct.
And today it's
practically the same.
Yeah.
Practically the same. What's helping it is a turnover tax, which was supposed to be a temporary measure as well. But we have too much revenue leakages. We have a lot of revenue leakages that's causing the problem.
I never heard anyone put it like that.
No, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And you don't have level playing fields within the tax code. For example, if a lot of young professionals knew how the tax code worked, and it's right there in the books, so you could read it for yourself. Do you know a real estate company could avoid turnover tax simply by, let's say I'm selling your house and I get 8% commission.
Right.
All I need to get is a copy of the deed from you that you buy the house, and then also the proof that you paid the transfer tax, and I get exempted from turnover tax. So why isn't a lot of our locals in real estate then? It's mostly foreigners, really, French people or whatever have real estate.
Yeah.
You see, so we are in businesses, we work in a job that killing us in terms of taxes, but not knowing that the tax system was eventually made up because they want to attract tourism.
Yeah.
And it was a good thing because back then they Claude saw it, hey, we need to attract tourism. So that tax code was built for that. But now we're in a different phase, right? We're in a different phase and it's causing a huge problem.
Yeah, because that's an area where very few local people are.
Correct. Also banking, interest income for the bank is turnover tax exempt, right? So that's another thing most people don't know. Also, if you study to be an aircraft mechanic and you open an aircraft mechanic shop or whatever and a Juliana or whatever, you also turnover tax exempt.
The airlines are exempt too.
Correct. So you see, nobody taught us this type of stuff because then we could have gone into these areas as well to benefit from it.
Then you know what happened?
Huh?
Then they closed it.
Be the close the loophole.
Yeah. As quick as local people. What surprised me is that years ago, this happened like over 20 years ago. A lot of local guys were using a loophole on the French side. You remember that with the fiscalization and everything else, right?
No.
People started to get upset. Even on this side, they would look for all kind of ways to block it because the local guy finally realized how to play the game.
But I'll give you a more subtle example. You remember when a lot of locals was bringing in cars from Japan?
Right.
They left whatever. What government did? they block it.
Yeah,
that's not allowed anymore. So you don't see it much anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like a protection for one group versus the other group. The other issue I have is most turnover tax people actually we end up paying the turnover tax because, believe it or not.
Yeah,
people embed it in the price, implicit in the price, and then what they do, they charge it to us. But here's the irony in it: they can still deduct 90% of the turnover tax as expense, even though we paid it. So you see, the whole system is flawed.
It's amazing. In case you just joined us, my guest is Mr. Emilio Kalmera here, and speaking of everything on YouTube, Facebook, and Hot 99.9 FM radio. And that piece you mentioned there on the 90% deduction, a lot of people are not aware of that.
No. Yeah. And when I asked it back in the days, when I was curious, find out, because I always try to break apart stuff to figure out why it's like that. So I said, but technically I thought I'm paying a turnover tax. In theory, yes, but if I put it in the price, let's say I want $10, I'll adjust my price 10 divided by 0.95, and that I'm gonna put on my thing. So you won't see no added to the bill and anything like that. I put it in the price. So technically, you paying it, and then I allow to deduct 90%. I say, but why not 100%? Taxman says because we know that technically the businesses don't really pay it. So if you know that, why don't you just adjust the system to the American system? Add it to the bill, and then that you give to government.
Exactly.
Because a lodging tax is like that.
But they say it's time consuming.
No, but the lodging tax is like that. The hotels, the law says the huurder betaalt, the renter pays it, so they can add it to the bill. So why you have a different level playing field, a different field for hotels, but not for a restaurant, for example? You basically causing distortion. But
even with that, the hotels collect it and they don't pay.
That's another thing as well. That's the thing. No one is checking that either.
Yeah.
You know, but they're checking that you want to come cross-check you with your small business and this and that.
Yeah. You as a local person are scrutinized to the, unbelievable.
And to give you a joke, they sent me assessment for 2021 income tax. So I protested because they seemed to made a mistake. So I protested. Somehow they didn't send the letter or give a copy to receivers. Apparently, I had to do that as well. So I have to do their job as well. Nonetheless, so nothing wasn't flagging the system. So eventually, they came after me and wanted to put a lien on my vehicle. God bless my vehicle get total loss in January by some fool. So I tell him I don't have no vehicle. I was driving my mother's vehicle. So I said, what is it gonna take? You know what I mean? So it's like you're coming after me, but no one checking the protest letter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just really waste of time, huh?
No, how you look at. You look at Sint Maarten, a small little island. It's so cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
And people come here and they can't believe what they're seeing. Even with all the problems in the global economy and everything else, it seems like Sint Maarten is kind of immune to all those.
Yeah, people like one of the investors that I spoke to, I tell her, look, I have property in Angola which I can develop. I can give you a good deal and help and develop it and make something nice.
Yeah.
She said, no, I prefer Sint Maarten because I want to be where I'm most happiest. Because Sint Maarten is unique in a certain way. You get up almost any time in the morning and some places open to buy something to eat. You see? So it's people love it.
Yeah.
The problem I have is the same problem I have with some clients of mine. For example, they have a product. And I tell them, are you sure the product is priced correctly? And they're like adamant it's priced correctly. So when I dive in now and start doing my research and then putting things in place, they're actually making losses. So Maarten is the same thing. You always have to look at something called the contribution margin. That's your revenue minus your variable expenses. Whatever leave back, that's called a contribution margin. That contribution margin contributes to the fixed expenses. If the contribution margin is too low, you're always going to make a loss.
Yeah.
So Maarten have the same problem, right? We basically have all what is needed that people love to come here. But we're not extracting enough to be able to stay in the infrastructure or whatever because our contribution margin is too low. So that's why when people kick up about increasing lodging tax from 5 to, let's say, 8%, people are upset. But first of all, the lodging tax is not turnover tax, right? It's the huurder betaalt, right? The renters paying it.
Right.
And the average in the region is like 12%. So how is it that Sint Kitts is collecting much more than us?
Yeah.
But Sint Kitts' product is not as good as our product. You understand?
Yeah.
Even from the harbor perspective, Sint Kitts making the harbor, but their harbor can't compete with ours. Maybe now it probably can, but back then they couldn't. So how is it that we accepting peanuts for the product that we have, while others don't have the same thing and making millions?
That's a very interesting topic, and I guess some people, our audience would love to know why, but at the same time, it's a political situation. And very serious. And the reason I say that is because I've been around for a long time, and I'm aware of why that's like that. But I wouldn't say. Maybe 15, 20 years ago I would have done it. Today things are different, and you're not going to get anywhere anyway. But it's a serious problem, and I agree with you. I mean, all of these are things we need to address. I had the Minister of Finance here recently, and I said, and someone, a gentleman in his 80s, contacted me. He said, "I like how you said going down to memory lane," and it has to do with the casinos. And the olden days, what Claude said, "Hey, these guys are cheating. We can't get them on a drop, so get them on a fixed monthly fee." They're not paying that now. So if you're going to tax them on, turnover, you're going back to what was changed over 30 years ago, and it just don't work. What I would do, and you're a more financial guy than I, increase it, the monthly fee from 50 to 100,000.
Of course, you have to look at their situation as well, right? So anytime you're going to change something, it's cause and effects.
Right.
You have to be fair to everyone. When I say fair, for example, Curacao, for example, is looking at reducing, I probably did it already, dropping the profit tax. Because our profit tax is 34.5%, which is highest in the region, right? Highest in the region. If you're going to move profit tax from 34.5% to 15%, you always have to look at what would be the result of that. No, you can't do that in isolation, because then you have to also lower on individual taxes. You have to also lower it. Why? I'm a young professional. If you're telling me I got to pay up to 47.5% on my income, and profit tax move from 34.5 to 15, I'm going to open a consultancy. I'm going to go into my consultancy, give myself a basic British salary, pocket the profit, and borrow against it, right? Because now it's only 15% I'm paying. Versus 47.5%. So you also have to you can't look at things in isolation. Everything you do, you have to make sure that everyone pay their fair share, and everyone have to be treated, not equally, but at least fairly.
But when you look at, for example, casinos, the initial set up casino was for hotels.
Correct.
And you had to have upwards of 75 rooms to get a casino
Makes
license.
sense. But Bahamas later.
And locals were not allowed to go in more than once a week.
But the locals actually sustaining for the most part.
And that's why I say, if you look at the economy, what does it really contribute to the economy of St. Martin when you have the majority of locals who are going there and getting addicted to gambling, while the majority of the workers are not local? So it's unfortunate. And that's a point that I made when I said, well, you know what? I don't hear casinos going bankrupt.
No.
So then maybe what they need to do is increase that monthly fee.
Yeah, I agree.
So I agree with what you're saying, that they have to look at all but you look at the market in St. Martin, it doesn't really contribute to
Right. Yeah. Correct. That is correct. And that's a sad reality, because the way our tax system is set up now, and by design, by the way, you don't see any economic government don't see more money with economic growth. Only thing they will see with economic growth is more like the 1% foreign exchange turnover tax. But the bulk of the income, they don't see with economic growth. As a matter of fact, all of government revenues right now is, as a percentage of GDP, is less than 20%. It's about 17.something%.
Wow.
The average in the region and in most countries is over 20-something%. So we even that we below the what we need to be, and that's why we always have a problem when it comes to budget.
And I want to jump back to what you said earlier about the 47.5% bracket.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the highest.
That's the highest. Yeah.
If you're in that bracket and you get wise and you do what you said earlier, right? You know what's going to happen the following year when you file your tax return?
You ain't get back.
Huh?
You ain't get back money.
They're going to hunt you down too. Because they will see right away a difference.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you become a target to the tax inspector.
That is true, but once you could justify it, they'll come after you, yes, but you have to be able to justify it.
And they keep you in litigation, and for 5 years, and then they write you a letter telling you that they reserve the right to extend it for another 5 years, and it's legally possible.
That's madness.
Okay?
Yeah, that is madness.
I'll tell you. No, I could tell you that.
You've been through it.
I experienced it right
madness.
now.
Yeah, it's madness.
That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you are a local person, the odds are against you.
But then that's what I'm advising a lot of persons, and we don't get this stuff in school. Never, ever, ever invest as an individual. Yeah. Never. And I think I've met a lot of persons that did that, and they regret it today.
And when you make the switch, you're in trouble.
Well, it depends. Because it depends. It depends.
Yeah.
It depends how you make the switch.
Yeah.
Like my sister made the switch. Of course, they still came after the Eenman Zaak or the sole proprietorship, so we get that out of the way. You know, a lot of errors they made, of course. So I spent a whole hour, for example, to have to explain somebody, no, you're wrong, and he says you're wrong. A whole hour, right? Now she have her BV, and now it's more smooth sailing.
I think what I sense, and maybe I'm wrong here, but the workers at the tax office, look, they mean well, but it's like, hey, I see Emilio Kalmera, and man, look at what he got. Look at what I got. So, I'm going to screw him over, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to hunt him down even for 150 guilders. Yeah. And I'm going to tell him, look, he filed the return. You have all the proof. I just tie him up. No, that's happening.
Yeah,
that's happening right now.
But also, the knowledge is that, look, the from a short staff point of view, tax office is really understaffed. That's
been like
really
that
understaffed.
For
example,
years.
there's no really like CPA person in tax office, or really a person who first in accounting in tax office, which there are vacancies for. So in other words, the more stringent cases and advanced cases, who's going to tackle it? You put the ones who are not experienced enough, and then what they do, they're going to frustrate the process. That's the problem.
And the sad thing is that you don't want to go to court with the government, but ultimately they push you.
They push you, yeah, unfortunately. And most of the time they just lose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we talk about that. Yeah. But when you look at Simran again, jumping back to, we're talking about the global markets are changing.
Correct.
Especially now.
Big time.
Right now, we are in a serious situation. Maybe not, but I'm worried.
Yeah.
Because
I used to be worried back in the day, Mr. Gibbs, but what grounded me is history, right? History shows a pattern of same things happening like over and over again.
Right?
It's cyclical, right? And what I realized after reading the scripture as well, I realized scripture tells you always prepare for uncertainty.
Keyword, yeah.
It says life is uncertain. The Bible tells you that.
Yeah.
So I have to learn now to be, take any situation and make it work in my favor, right? It's not the easiest thing to do, but it tells you life is uncertain. And it says because it's uncertain, create options, right? Diversify, create optionality, right? That's the word coming from. The more options you have, the less risk it is for you. For example, when I went to look at properties in Belize, I found properties that I liked that had access to an airstrip. But the reason why the one I chose that took 2.5 years to get, and why I could have gotten the other one more quicker.
Yeah.
But the reason why I chose the one and I took it out, it's a farm. If you have a farm, you have options.
Man, that's incredible. Yeah.
You have 3 wells on the farm. That's options. We completely off grid. That's option.
Yeah.
We have an airstrip. So if I don't want to drive, I can fly. Right? And I have a lot of airstrips. Like even if I say I want to be a professor, the school where the Belize University have an airstrip close by.
Wow.
I can basically fly in, park the plane, and go teach. So optionality. You always want to have options. The more options you have, the better. The problem is when you don't have options, then what do you do?
Yeah.
You see?
So optionality is key.
It's key. And you could create optionality with anything. With income, you know what I mean? You could create optionality.
But in Simran perspective now, for Simran.
For Simran perspective, you have a lot of foreigners have optionality, right? So I know people here, they bought in Santo Domingo, they have things going on in Jamaica, et cetera, in St. Lucia, whatever. So you have to create real estate optionality, right? Remember the money you're making here in Santo Domingo, you could buy maybe 2 units and have them rented out. Yeah. Management company managing it, they take their cut, whatever, you got money coming in. You don't rely on Purely and St. Maarten, right? So that's optionality. Job optionality you need as well, because like I said already, one job is not gonna cut it. I see a guy took his scooter and turned that scooter into an asset. What does he do? Deliveries. And the minute he come and me to eat, I was by Bushman, eating something. He came to get a little pate, and within that span of time, you know how much orders he got to have to pick up to deliver. So he turned that scooter into a side hustle, right? So you could have your main job. Some people do Domino's delivery.
Yeah.
So you have to find ways to be able to create, optionality, right? And just have to be creative.
I know a lot of people doing that in St. Maarten now, huh?
What's that?
Optionality. The 2 or 3 little things on the side and so forth.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, this is back in the 80s, okay? I was working at Muller Bay. That was the only job I had, and I was doing the TV shows. And there was this guy, he was working for government. I won't mention it, but the guy was brilliant.
Yeah.
Had a good job in government, huh? Nobody was doing at night, driving a bus in Muller Bay.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'll catch him sleeping. It's a pattern you got to go, but we were lenient on him. But he was a guy that wanted to do other things and make money. And
that's what I'm saying. Because look, with one job and the cost of living is very difficult. The danger, though, is like in my case, there's 2 ways I can beat the system: go into consultancy, pay myself a basic salary. Because remember, as a consultancy, and I own the business, a lot of costs. So right now, when I work, government take out all the costs first, and I get the balance. When you have an entity, right, you do all the expenses and whatever leave back, government get. So it's reverse. You understand?
Yeah, I listen to you, but I tell me what you think about this though. When you file your income tax, and sometimes the tax will look and ask you, you have to explain to them how you survive, how you eat, because that don't match.
That's a good point. That's a good point, but it also depends on your expenses, right? For example, I got my expenses down to, like, let's say, I can go down to as low as, let me say, $900 per month, $1,000 a month, right? And I make much more than that. You understand? The bad part about doing that is if everyone does that, right? Because if you go more income, you get taxed higher.
Yeah.
So the only thing you can control is the expenses. But if I get my expenses down so low and everyone does that, what happens to the economy, right? Because people don't realize that the less I spend and the less everybody else spend, the economy goes into a tailspin.
I remember you told me what you told me one time?
No, I don't remember.
If everybody did what I did, there would be a problem.
It'd be a problem. But that is the issue.
I believe in efficiency. I really,
yeah, but it'd be a problem though. You know that.
Yeah.
For example, America did a stupid thing. I understand you want to get rid of illegals, but what they realize when they're getting rid of the illegals, where is spending power going?
Yeah.
Because remember, illegals are working and they still have to pay. They have to pay into the system, huh? But they don't benefit from the system. So all the social security money goes into the pool, which they can never benefit from, but Americans could benefit from it.
Yeah.
So they realize now, but wait a minute, if I get rid of, let's say, 20,000 people in this area, what happens to the food they were buying? What happens to the rent they was paying? So you have to look at those things as well, huh?
When last have you flown into the U.S.?
I think I did that in December last year, yeah.
Yeah?
Because I was going to Belize, so I had to transit in America.
To Miami?
Yeah, to Miami, yeah.
You notice anything different?
One thing I noticed with Miami, I was never able to get through
so fast.
So
right?
fast.
Okay.
That was shocking.
That's why I asked you.
It was shocking.
I've
never ever went through Miami and get out of immigration in like a couple of minutes.
Thanks to Trump.
It's amazing.
I was through immigration in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, me too. I was shocked. I never had that before.
Before you go to Miami, it's like 3-4 hours sometimes.
I stayed minimum 2 hours in the line. 2 hours.
I was in Miami already. I went to took an elderly gentleman to New York. And we ended up 4 hours in Miami alone. And we had to get to New York at midnight to 1 in the morning. We got to New York at 5 in the morning.
I hear you. It's rough.
That was 8 years, 6 years. But now Miami is a piece of cake.
Yeah, it is a piece of cake.
Yeah.
It is a piece of cake. What helps as well is something, I downloaded this app as well. Forgot the name of the app though. So what you do, just when you arrive, you upload your stuff to the system, and then you go through another line. and then they don't already have your system, and that's pretty quick as well. I forget the name of it though.
The global travel.
Something to that effect. Yeah. You upload all your passport, all the documents, and then just when you reach, you send it through, and then you go into a separate line.
Yeah.
So I think the similar line that Americans go through, they have a sign on it.
Yeah.
You go through that, and it's like you're in and out in no time.
But it's just amazing to see how fast people can get in and out through, right?
Yeah.
How you feel about oil prices, and because oil is so important?
It is. But like I said, if you have optionality, you don't have an issue. Sabre, I was in Sabre, I could tell you, for the opening of one of the pension funds in the hotel. And the guy tell us during, I think, 11 o'clock and let's say 2 o'clock or whatever, the energy they're getting from the solar panels is so high that the whole of Sabre technically is on solar at that point in time. Yeah. And then also you have Station have a similar situation, right? So again, optionality. Right? Holland just created options for those folks that they can kind of keep their costs in check. Of course, shipping costs can be higher. But then again, you have optionality with creating some food security. Exactly. You know what I mean?
I visited both of those plants. I know the people who built them. And come to St. Maarten now. We don't even have 1 megawatt.
So in other words, we don't have options. So we can feel the direct impact of it. Yeah, direct impact.
What I can't understand is why is it that we as an island in the Kingdom of the Netherlands take 10, 15, 20 years to finally move a rock from here to there, while the Dutch in Sabre and Statia do it in just a matter of a year or two. I just can't figure that one out.
Now, you're going to make me say something that I didn't want to say here. Honestly, Mr. Gibbs, I'm going to say it here, and for the record, the best thing to happen to St. Maarten is the Dutch take it over. And I'm saying it not because I want it to happen. I don't see another way out, because we don't have the human capacity, right? We have misallocation of human capital, and once you have that, right, we're going to be going over the same, I say that, Russian roulette over and over and over, while the debt is building up, and there's no benefit. I don't have a problem with paying taxes, you know. I have a problem paying taxes. I'm not seeing what I get them for it.
Exactly.
That's my problem.
I agree.
You understand?
Yeah.
Aruba now, say what you want. They went into huge amounts of debt. But people tell me when they go to Aruba, they can see what Aruba did with that money. For St. Maarten, what are we doing? How have my life improved from since I came back from studying in St. Maarten? What have I seen differently that improves my life in St. Maarten? I can't tell you.
A lot of young people asking that question now.
I have a best friend that's a girl and a best friend that's a boy. The best friend that's a girl, she left. She was my business partner. She left, went to Holland, and within the first year she was able to buy a house.
Wow.
Right? And she worked mostly from home, and she said it's a beautiful something.
Do you know in St. Maarten, the average young person can't afford to buy not even a piece of land?
I don't know.
So as a house?
I know. Most land now is over $100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
average price of a piece of land in St. Maarten is $110,000.
But here's the danger. People that's in my age bracket simply are waiting for their children to finish high school. And when they're going to study, they say they plan to bow out.
Yeah.
In terms of whether the Netherlands or wherever.
Yeah.
Right now, I was offered a job in a company that handled pensions or whatever. And that's an option for me to take. I mean, my daughter is finishing St. Dominic now, but she's young. She's 16, so she want to do 2 years of the some league or something like they call it in St. Dominic.
Yeah.
And then she could transfer out.
Okay.
So I have 2 years to decide if I'm planning to leave as well. You know what I mean? Because the point of the matter is, real estate is too expensive. Quality of life is basically crap. So the point is, what am I doing here?
But look, I agree with everything you said. But when I look around this island, I drive to come to the station in Simpson Bay. Outside, there are multi-million-dollar mega yachts. On the other side of the road, there are huge condominium developments and everything else. This place is booming, man.
Look, it would be booming for me if I had the same level playing field.
Your sister said that on the show with me.
Yeah. Look at this. If I show you how much taxes I pay per month, right? So let's say for the government taxes I pay, let me say 4,000, 3,000 guilders a month, right? And then with the pension fund sniping, I pay another whatever.
Yeah.
Let me say between those two, let's say it's 4,000 something guilders. Mr. Gibbs, what is that? That's a mortgage, huh?
Yeah.
That is a mortgage, right? So you have a lot of young professionals don't have the tax deductibility of having a mortgage or whatever. Right. And so now they feel the squeeze, right? They feel the squeeze of it. And at the same time, they don't have the quality of life they want. They're stuck in traffic, whatever. And those are the ones are bowing out.
Yeah.
What happens then when you have the aging population situation? Who pays for them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's going to pay for them? Not the foreigner who have an investment here, Airbnb, they ain't collecting nothing from Airbnb. Who's going to help them?
Yeah, and you know, what you said is so true. And when you look at the island, for example, if you want to open a bank account, it is so difficult. They have to meet all the requirements that were put on these islands by the U.S. And they're targeting drug traffickers, right? Money laundering. And people using money to finance terrorist activities. Now, you and I are not going to get into that. But it becomes so tedious. They target every little guy as he's a drug pusher or terrorist supporter. And you look around St. Maarten, and people are beginning to realize that one of the biggest money laundering operations in the entire world now is on this little 16 square mile. 16 square mile, not the whole lot, 16 square mile.
But it is. When I was working in a banking institution, we had someone fly from Venezuela on a private jet to meet with one of the executives. And basically, they wanted to pull money out of Venezuela and to pump it into real estate here. Whether it's beneficial or not, it doesn't matter, right? So you have those nuances. You also have a nuance where, because of the Dutch-Franco Treaty, do you know Americans have basically similar rights like us?
Yeah.
So let's say I am American, I come to St. Maarten, I pull equity out of my real estate in America, borrow the money. Here, you have to put 35% once you're not resident, right? And the rest I borrow from the bank. And then I wait maybe a year, flip it for 3 times, and there's no capital gains tax.
Yeah.
Any fool would do that, right? Once you have that ability to do it, that's what you're going to do.
A lot of people doing that.
Of course, I would do it too. Yeah. It's easy money. But you know, we can do it as well, huh? If I build a house right now, Mr. Gibbs, and I build it for 100 and sell it for 1,000, right? I don't pay no taxes on that, huh? It's no capital gains. So
repeat that one more time there.
So if I build a house right now, right, for 100, and I sell it for 1,000, there's no capital gains tax on that, huh? That's clean money. So technically we can do it as well. Is it that we don't know?
But some people doing it.
Right.
Yeah, some people doing it, yeah.
Right. Once you don't classify it as a business, so you can't do it like behind each other.
Yeah.
You do it once, you hold off a bit. What all you gotta do is make sure you do it in such a way that the initial capital gain that you get could set you up for at least 2 years. Right? Then you start the process after 2 years again.
Well, you know, they have to look into all the loopholes.
There's a lot of loopholes. A lot of loopholes. And the problem you have is the ones who are willing to contribute to the system are the ones you're squeezing more and more. That's the problem.
How you feel about the 1% on the US dollar? It was instituted back in 1995, just after Hurricane Lewis, along with the turnover tax that was supposed to be temporary austerity measure that now is permanent. And the 1% on the US dollar was a good idea then. But at that time, you had interest on savings of around 3-4%. Today now, interest on savings is below 1%.
On dollars. And guilders is still, dollars.
Dollars.
Yeah.
So I'm talking mostly on dollars now.
Yeah.
So what happened is, and I told this to the Minister of Finance the other day, she was here, you put $100 in the bank, you go to take it out, you don't have $100 anymore. So basically what you have is negative interest rate on the US dollar.
Correct. But I'll go further than that. Some banks here make mistakes, huh? And for spite, some banks, and I brought it up to one of the banks, I'm not going to say the name, because they're doing it wrong, they do it incorrectly. We have a sort of an issue that But they do correct it, huh? You notice, like, I'm not sure if you have a Web account.
Oh, but, yeah.
Have you ever noticed, like, they always sending back, like, small amounts back, like, as like income?
I never get that.
Yeah, I have that all the time in my whatever.
Never.
So that's, I think, the corrections they're doing for that aspect. Why? People don't realize
that's
that
on savings?
No,
Is that
general,
No,
general. Yeah, so the problem you have is dollar to resident dollar, there's no 1%.
Exactly.
Some banks make the mistake and still do it.
As long as you don't go to the bank and take it out, it has to be a
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's only from res to non-res is when you have to incur the 1%. But somehow I have a bank, I've been fighting with them and say, well, how the hell are you charging me when I transfer it to myself? For example, you can't do that. If I pay something in dollars locally, right, or whatever, that's not foreign.
Yeah.
The entity is here. So it's res to non-res, you have to charge 1%.
Yeah. So the 1% doesn't apply like that.
No. If me and you do business, they do 1%, they can't take out the 1% because it's dollar to dollar resident.
But the thing I want you to make clear for my viewers and listeners that transaction is taken digitally because they don't use checks anymore.
Correct.
But if you walk into the bank to withdraw cash, they don't care who you're paying. They're gonna apply that 1%.
But it's wrong because
how you on?
It's wrong because you a resident.
I see your point.
You see what I'm saying? It's your account. It's your account. It's your account.
Yeah,
you withdraw dollars to yourself as a resident.
You shouldn't have to pay.
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not.
I know they're talking about. Makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you. But they use it incorrectly.
But you challenge it?
No, I challenged the bank that did it, and they, at the same time they give me some bogus story. So I asked somebody in the central bank if that's the case, to tell me no, the bank is wrong.
Well, then I'm going to challenge it from now on.
Yeah, but to me to go to do all that court, our court system is another trip.
Yeah.
I've been through it. It's a trip.
Yeah.
They would exhaust your money as an individual.
Yeah.
I hate a backlash. As an individual, you cannot deduct certain things for tax reasons.
Yeah, you gotta be a company.
Yeah,
you gotta be a corporation.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
I had that problem with the Housing Foundation, right? Completely wrong, right? I paid a lawyer a percentage of what the return I get, and I was not able to deduct that. Only the court fees I was able to deduct. Okay. So in other words, all that money gone to the lawyer, but you still want me to pay over the money that went to the lawyer.
If it was Kalmera and via BV, it's different.
That's it. Yeah. That's why I tell people when you're doing stuff, always use an entity. Right? That's the sad reality of the matter.
Yeah. In case you've just joined us, I'm Earl Gibbs, OG, here with Mr. Emilio Kalmera. He's a financial expert here to speak with us on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. You just have a few more minutes to go, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm going to jump back because remember I asked you about oil recently.
Right.
You also mentioned the sovereign fund of it, Norway. Or whatever.
Right, Norway, correct.
Yeah. The Saudis are making preparation too because they realize what's happening in the last 10 years, right? Big companies like Sila and all of that build those huge generators are now looking at all kinds of different areas. Everybody.
Yeah. Optionality.
Exactly.
Optionality. Look, one thing I'm going to tell you, right? Oil is black gold, right? You can reduce your dependency on oil, but you can never fully reduce it because oil has a biological propensity. Yeah. So whatever that makeup of oil is, you're still going to need it for certain aspects of anything.
For years.
So that's not going to go away. You know what I mean? You could definitely reduce your dependency on it, but you cannot fully come off of oil. That's a given. So oil always going to be valuable. It's just that you need to make sure that you have options around it. For example, another option, like we talk about planes, we love planes.
Yeah.
If I had to choose an aircraft to buy right now, let's say I was gifted to buy even two, I'll buy something called the PC-12 and the PC-24.
Why?
Optionality. The PC-12, right, could operate as a corporate plane, but it has a huge door in the back. Okay. You could turn it into cargo.
Okay,
and landing, it could land on almost any strip and short strips, right? Optionality. You always want to be able to switch up when the need is to switch up to take advantage of revenue. That's optionality.
But let's look at St. Maarten now. Dominica have more optionality than St. Maarten. what optionality we have because we import everything.
Yeah, but that's the
Basically do
problem.
everything.
But that's why we feel in the pinch right now, and we're gonna feel it more and more as countries decide to deglobalize and get more and more self-contained or whatever. What's gonna happen to us? That needs to import everything.
Yeah.
Right? That's gonna be a problem.
Wow.
That's why I tell some persons now to increase your optionality, start studying 3D printing. Right? You could take certain plastic that we import, a lot of plastic we throw away right now, depending on if you look at the bottom, it has a number.
Right.
Depending on what number that is, you can take that, melt it down, and use it in a 3D printer to create something else, as an example. Those type of things you have to start thinking about. You can also print parts, right? If you get the metal, you could create parts. Right now, one of the biggest revenue generating things, if you could get so skilled and get certified to print aircraft parts, example, you are in a league of your own.
Can you imagine in the U.S. some places there are building houses? 3D
They have 3D printers now could build homes as well.
Yeah.
So these are the technologies that are there that you can take out. Right now, for example, we have one of the best steel options, better than the normal steel we're getting from wherever. And we have all the material we need from lava rock. Basalt rebar is one of the best steels ever. It's lighter than a normal steel.
Yeah.
It doesn't crack will never crack your concrete like how normal steel does. Because when normal steel get wet or whatever, it expands and crack your concrete. Lava rock doesn't do that. And we have a bunch of volcanoes. We have Sabre, Stage. You go way down the Caribbean island, and we could also create steel from lava rock. So there's so much of different things, Mr. Gibb, that we can do, but I don't understand why we're not doing it.
But I guess when you look at what's happening globally right now and all the shipping costs and things that's going to go up, we're going to see some really hike in prices.
Correct.
That's going to hurt a lot of people.
It will. That's unfortunate. But then again, remember, I told you, biblically, it tells you already, right? The uncertainties of life. That's why the way we conduct ourselves, I don't have a problem with wars no more. I used to have a problem with it until I read scripture.
Yeah.
Wars give you a reason to reset. Because then what happens then? You were saving money all the time, but your money can't stretch. A war come, boom, right? You have the money now, you could buy stuff cheaper, right? Pandemic, same thing. That's the only way we can actually get the system to reset, because in biblically it talks about a year of jubilee, right? But no one applies that. The year of jubilee was after every 49 years. On the 50th year, you have to reset debts, reset this, reset that, leave the land, rest or whatever, and then you start back over. That's to prevent build up of debts and chronic whatever in the economy. But no one does that.
How you feel? You think debt is good or bad?
Debt is like a loaded gun. It depends. It depends on what you plan to do with it.
Right?
And you have to know how to use debt.
Yeah.
Right. You have to know, because debt right now you have to know how to use debt because the whole economy is based on debt.
Most people don't understand how to use it.
No, that's the problem.
Only the rich people do.
Of course, and you use the sad reality is debt is not taxed, right? So the rich always going to use debt because it's not taxed.
That's the key word.
Of course, you have assets, you borrow against the asset, right? As the asset appreciates in value, you reborrow again. It's like how bonds are reshuffled.
And they own nothing.
They own nothing. Control everything. But you see, if you teach everyone that,
they don't teach you that in school.
They can't, Mr. Gibbs. They can't allow you to do that. What can happen to the tax system?
Yeah, wow. Yeah. It's kind of scary in a way sometimes when you look at it.
So most countries are depending on their citizens being ignorant.
Yeah.
That's how they survive.
Because that's the bulk of it.
Yeah, but the Bible says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." Right? You have knowledge and you have wisdom. People don't understand the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Right? Knowledge is knowing. Wisdom is doing what knowledge teaches you. I'm a doctor, for example. Let's say I'm a doctor.
Right.
I know I have the knowledge that smoking is bad, but I still smoke. That means you're knowledgeable, but you don't have no wisdom. Yeah. You see the difference?
How you feel about young people today in St. Maarten, right? Because we have a huge young population that is unemployed.
Correct.
We have a huge young population on both sides of the island sitting in prison. Here on Dutch St. Maarten, French St. Maarten, in Guadeloupe, in two different prisons in Guadeloupe. But if you look at other group of young people, those are professionals or just high school graduates, what you think they need to do now or consider doing in order for them to succeed, say, 15, 20 years down the road?
The school system is outdated, first of all, right? The school system is not preparing these children to take on the future for what's out there. Okay, so if I go in the school system now, I have to go back, reborn and go back to the school system. I probably can still get the cow jump over the moon, blah blah blah. In China, you know what they're doing? China bring out children to be problem solvers, right? They ain't teaching cow and moo and that type of nonsense, huh? So they realize, look, this is the way we act now, technology wise. How can we start from this and move on from there? Same thing like here. Why they not training children to do, for example, London 3D printing as an example, right? The latest technology in agriculture, aquaponics, hydroponics, those type of stuff. The latest in renewable energy technologies, there's a lot.
Oh yeah.
You understand? The latest in construction design, right? All these things are amazing to learn, right? But we're not doing it. We're sticking to the same old school system from donkey. And then first of all, with all the technologies, what's going on there, children need to be stimulated. Remember, they're watching YouTube, this and that and that.
Yeah.
If you don't stimulate the mind, you're going back to those old stuff that I got back in my day.
Yeah.
We're shooting ourselves in the foot with our kids.
No, it's kind of scary too, because I remember many years, I was 7 years before we started, I used to say in my program that my children don't watch television.
Correct.
Because I knew the danger, because I was involved when I studied at the University of Buffalo in research and so forth. It had a negative effect on children. So I limit my children access to television. There was no television in the bedroom. There was one TV in the living room, and they had to do their homework, and they never complained about it. Today now, this is an iPad.
Yeah.
The digital technology is doing what television did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s to our young people.
Yeah,
Cognitively,
unfortunately.
it's damaging them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that.
I think is what you also instill in your kids. Like my daughter, you wouldn't believe. My daughter keep her right. It's a problem now, though. Huh?
Yeah.
But daughter keep asking about, Daddy, you tell me you're gonna give me access to a trading account, all right? Yeah. You tell me that a couple of months ago. What's going on? Because she want to go on that now, to go on the brokerage account to start learning the trade. And my daughter, when she adamant about something,
don't give up.
Boy, she don't give up. That's why I tell you I got her the debit card.
Right.
All right. And then she's happy about that. Now she's asking me for the app. I said, wait. What you want the app for now? I said, I give you the card. The app for me is allowed to see what you're spending. Right. What you want the app for now to do? To throw me out. You know what I mean? But it's what you put in your kids. My daughter is so busy doing violin. She's doing dancing or whatever. She don't have the time to watch much TV, to be honest. You know what I mean?
And that's good. And your children have to have some self-control to it. Because all my children had credit cards from small, American Express, from the time. In fact, my eldest daughter had it from the time she was 10 years old. They made a mistake, actually. Yeah. So those things happen, right? Yeah. But the thing is that for a lot of people, they don't have the privilege, like, say, you and I, with our children, and they have to go to work at 2 and 3 jobs, and so the kid comes home, open up to everything for themselves, and in the long run, we see the effects of what's happening today in Zimbabwe.
Right. So I think in that role, government has to look. At the end of the day, I'm not gonna lie, is parents also have to take responsibility.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like you do money management, you have family plan. So like you do planning, you also have family planning. That's a given, right?
Right.
But of course, things happen, right? Things happen. You know, you might start off that way, and maybe the man left, gone, on you, or whatever the case would be. You know, you're stuck as a single parent, so that can happen. But if government sees this as a natural problematic, given the fact that our education budget is one of the largest hit on the budget, right? And you're not getting the bang for your buck, you have to do something about it, huh?
Yeah.
Because if you don't do something about it, the question then becomes, why are you pumping money into an area and you're not getting the bang for your money?
It's been like that for a long time.
But it's a problem.
It's the largest part of the budget.
It's a problem. Yeah. And I understand why is it that, because the process is, if you have wage taxes, your biggest revenue generator, you're expecting now to generate the necessary skill set to come back to be able to tap into that. But that's not happening. That's not happening.
Because when they get educated too, they're not coming back.
But why would I come back? What opportunity is there for me to come back to, Mr. Gibbs?
Yeah.
What opportunity there is? As a matter of fact, if my mom was not living in St. Martin, I wouldn't have come back to St. Martin. I'd have stayed in England. Yeah. I'd have been in Manchester now, probably as a big executive, making crazy money, probably over a bunch of people under me. You understand? Because that's ambitious. How ambitious I am. But I came back for my mom when you look at it. But the reality is, I'm kind of regretting that decision today.
Well, Simran learned a lot from you too. I mean,
That's true.
People are really happy to see and hear you.
Yeah, that is true. But at the same time now, I'm planning my exit strategy because I've been here for a number of years and have not seen, every year I look at where I'm at and where it is. Unfortunately, I'm making my growth outside of St. Maarten. And the problem with that was you generate networks outside of St. Maarten, then home don't become home anymore.
Yeah.
You have to be vested in your country in order to be patriotic.
What
right?
What do you think government need to do to attract more young people like yourself to stay in St. Maarten? What they really need to do? What do you think?
But how are they going to do that right now at this stage in the game?
Too late?
It's too late.
No, man, never too late.
So okay, let's say I'm out. I'm working in Manchester, earning, let me say, £10,000 a month, right? I have good home, got a nice house, whatever, and I'm good. How are you gonna attract me back to St. Maarten? What are you gonna tell me to convince me I must leave what I have in Manchester, United Kingdom, to come back to St. Maarten? What are you gonna tell me? Oh, I'm home. You're home.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. What else?
Yeah. I know. I can't figure. I can't figure out anything. I can tell you. Well, you come back. You got 5 years tax free. You have.
Now you're talking something. Now when I hear that now, I pull up my chair now and say, oh, okay, that's a start. That's a start. But what are we tracking? What are we telling them now though? Oh, come back to contribute to St. Maarten because St. Maarten need you. That's it.
Yeah.
So when I come back now, you give me a lower salary than what I get overseas. How am I gonna survive? I can't afford to buy no house, right? Quality of living is crap. I'm stuck in traffic.
You get no respect.
Can't work from home.
Yeah.
You understand? What are the benefits? What are the benefits?
You become a target of, the government and everything else. There's like this resentment of real local professionals.
That's exactly the problem. So I don't see what the incentive would be for you to attract me to come back. Who you could probably attract is maybe those, even then it's difficult. I was going to say retirees, but the problem is retirees have good health care where they is sometimes.
They come in here. No way.
That's the problem.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Well, no, I love this island. And I always tell you, sometimes I made a lot of mistakes in my life because I love this island. It's cost me dearly, but I have no regrets.
Yeah.
This is where I was born. Yeah. I've tried my best through my television programs. I think I've influenced a lot of young people. I met a young lady who said because of me, she didn't sell her land. She was gonna buy a car, and she heard me saying, "Don't spend money on a car. Land is more important."
Correct.
And her mother told her, listen to what he's saying. And she thanked me today because she said she have a home and she was going to take that money, sell the land, and buy a car. She didn't do it.
Correct.
So I think in those areas, I feel good. And I think I told you about the young guy who I met in the bank walking. He said, "Oh, okay, I don't like you." And then he said, "No, I like you because my mother and father used to make me sit and watch your show. I didn't like it, but I realize now why." So in effect, and that's why a lot of people in St. Maarten still admire and respect you because you don't have that many people who are willing to come on a show like this, and you come every year and speak about these things that are so important to our people. Yeah. So you're making a contribution in a way that, believe me, most people are happy to see you and hear what you're doing.
Well, that's good to hear. But most people don't know that you was a big influence on a lot of what I did after as well, because I started off most people don't know that I was working for you back in the day. You taught me how to do with the cameras. Then you taught me to do the only thing we ever got into was the editing part. You know what I mean? But I appreciated all of that, and today I also have a radio program, kind of because of you as well.
Tell the viewers the name of the radio program.
Yeah, so it's For the Love of Money. For the Love of Money, and we talk financial 98.1. 98.1. Okay. Yeah, and then so we talked about financial literacy and a lot of topics in economics and so forth and so forth. But I would have never even dreamed to go in that area, right? If it wasn't for the experience I had with you, and most people don't know that.
But I always tell people, man, from then you was brilliant. Very few people could have done what you did in such a short period of time. Most people you had to train them like for months. You did in a week or two. So. You're a very intelligent person.
Yeah, my daughter's the same. Thanks, by the way. My daughter's the same thing. I remember the first time we went with a flight instructor to fly, and after maybe like 15 minutes, my daughter got hang of it.
Yeah.
She banking the plane and staying level.
Wow.
You know, most time when people bank a plane for the first time, the nose coming down and they're going level.
Wow.
The instructor said that was amazing.
But she's good.
Yeah. It's like I love to learn, and I love to break apart stuff to understand it in depth. Because only when you understand it in depth, you can then, do good things with that.
Have you seen the Honda Jet?
Yeah, I saw it. You know, boy, I can see
nice,
that.
Huh?
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, it's on the wings with the engines on the wings.
It's like
it's really nice. Quiet.
Yeah, $5 million and stand for it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice jet. Yeah, but it still can't compare with the PC-24.
I know.
Yeah.
I just love it. I love the speed now that is.
Yeah. I mean, if you can afford both, why not?
Yeah,
because it's faster, I think, than the PC-24.
Yeah.
But the PC-24 can land on any rugged location. You have the big door in the back.
Right.
So ambulance, if you want to do an air ambulance,
Let's do that.
It's you could cargo. Yeah. It's just optionality again.
Well, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice. I was telling you earlier, I love flying. I wanted to be a pilot, but because of the accident in my eyes, I couldn't. But, how many hours you got now?
Maybe just, I have much, Probably maybe like 80-something hours. Because I stopped flying after I came back. I stopped flying. And I said, for me to get back into flying, I have to make it affordable.
Okay.
Right? So that's why I ended up buying the land with the access to the airstrip. Yeah. And then I have the hangar. Because I don't have to pay to hang on my place. It's right there.
So it's up there.
And then I plan to build an aircraft too. I want to build an aircraft as well. Yeah. So
they have
that's
all
the
those different models and how.
Yeah, Velocity is one of them I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And another model come up, a 2-seater that I'm also looking at as well.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Man, it's always a pleasure to have you, man.
Same here.
Anything else you want to add closing?
No, I just want to say, the people should not fear what's happening in the world. What's happening in the world has happened over and over, and it's going to continue happening over and over again. It's how you take advantage of what's happening now and apply it, and also increase your skill set, increase optionality, right? You can increase it in almost any area, from income to skill set to wherever. And you have to do that in order to survive in a constantly changing world.
All right. Mr. Emilio Kalmera here on Speaking of Everything. I'll see you next time on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. Take care. Bye.